I've been pretty nostalgic for early 2000s horror lately. It was actually a fun time for horror films, and I saw most of them in theaters back then, with my friends and younger sister. Now, interestingly enough, a lot of those early to mid 2000s horror movies don't even have Blu-ray releases yet, let alone 4K, and they just seem kind of, well, forgotten. One such film is Soul Survivors, released on September 7th, 2001. So what were things like when this movie hit theaters almost 24 years ago? Well, the national average for a gallon of gas was $1.46. Friends was the highest rated show on TV. The teen sex comedy American Pie 2 was the #1 movie at the box office. And these were the top 3 songs on the Billboard 100 chart. I have to say, I'm not really familiar with any of them, but I'm a movie soundtracks and film score kind of guy. I ended up seeing Soul Survivors on opening weekend, and I seem to remember my friends and I going on Saturday, not Friday, probably due to my work schedule or something. Back in those days, I worked retail, and nearly 24 years later, I still work retail. Yeah. But here's something I find kind of fascinating. I watched Soul Survivors on September 8th, 2001. This would make it the last new film I would watch before the 9/11 terror attacks. Soul Survivors deals with death and loss and grief, and I find it interesting that I watched this movie just days before that awful event when the country and the world changed forever. So how does this movie hold up? Does it deserve to be forgotten? Well, it's got a 3.9 user rating on the Internet Movie Database. And during its theatrical run, it only made $4.2 million worldwide at the box office, and that's with a $16 million budget. So the movie tanked in theaters, but that was probably due more to the terror attacks than anything else. In the immediate aftermath of 9/11, horror was out. No one really wanted to see that kind of stuff, which was understandable. But just a few years later, with the war on terror raging on, horror movies would surge in popularity and reflect the violent times the world was experiencing. But Soul Survivors came just before all of that. As I mentioned earlier, this movie never even got a Blu-ray release. Now, the DVD came out on February 26, 2002. I bought it from Walmart one evening after work, back in the old days when my local store used to be open 24 hours. It's a nice release, and it actually includes the R-rated killer cut. The theatrical version was trimmed down to get a PG-13 rating. And the weird thing is, all of the streaming versions I found that are currently available are the PG-13 cut. So if you want to see this movie how it was meant to be seen, you've got to pick up this DVD released 23 years ago. Again, this movie just seems forgotten. Soul Survivors opens with a college student being attacked and murdered by 2 masked men. Wait, is that the Mark of Thorn from Halloween 5 and 6? It does look kind of like it, huh? Cool. When we meet our lead, Cassie, she and her friends and boyfriend are heading off to college. But before they go their separate ways, they want to hit up a party. It's an underground moving party, like a nightclub, I guess. Looks like a fun and safe place, huh? Oh, and guess who else is attending this party? The killers from earlier. I have to say, there's a nice sense of dread during all of this, with the killers lurking around, the rain, and the creepy imagery. It's all very well done and adds a nice creepy atmosphere to everything. So there's some drama and angst going on between the characters, concerning Cassie's boyfriend Sean and her ex-boyfriend Matt, who is now dating her friend Annabelle. Got it? After Cassie has a fight with Sean, they leave the party and the killers follow them. This leads to a car accident. And Sean is sadly killed. We then flash forward to Cassie, Matt, and Annabelle at college. As Cassie mourns the loss of her true love and deals with guilt over the accident, she starts having creepy visions and is stalked by the masked killers.
You're my baby.
She also starts having ghostly visions of Sean, and I have to say, some of these scenes are kind of sweet in a way. It actually tugs at the heartstrings a bit.
Don't let go. Don't let go.
Damn, I'm going soft in my old age, aren't I? Cassie ends up befriending a priest on campus, played by Owen Wilson. And honestly, I can't look at this guy without thinking of Old School. He's a good actor, it's just hard for me to take him seriously sometimes. So Cassie has lots of creepy visions as the attacks from the killers escalate. Even her friends are acting strange. And as the tagline on the poster states, the world of the living and the world of the dead are about to collide. I don't want to get into too many spoilers here, but I will say the whole what's real and what isn't thing has been done to death, and even by 2001, it was a little stale. The question then becomes, does this film utilize this kind of tired formula well enough to entertain you? Well, for the most part, yeah, it does. So what worked? The direction by writer-director Stephen Carpenter was fantastic. Carpenter actually did some great 80s horror films too, and I even reviewed his film The Kindred on Blu-ray, so check it out. Link below. As I mentioned earlier, there's a nice mood and look to the film, which is no doubt aided by the great score. The cast is also solid, with Melissa Sagemiller especially turning in a strong performance. I'll always think of Sorority Boys from 2002 when I see her. It's about 3 fraternity brothers who pretend to be women and join a sorority.
My name is Roberta, and I'm addicted to porn and I masturbate constantly. Pillow fight! Pillow fight! Oh!
Casey Affleck, younger brother of Ben, turns in a fine performance as her ghostly boyfriend. According to the Internet Movie Database, this was one of his least favorite films he worked on, but hey, at least he didn't just phone in his performance. Wes Bentley and Eliza Dushku are good as well, and it's funny that the poster makes it look like Eliza Dushku is a star, when she's not. But they were probably trying to capitalize on her Buffy the Vampire Slayer fame. And to be honest, she almost seems to be playing the same character here as she was in Buffy, personality-wise at least. Speaking of the poster, the makers were definitely going for a late 90s, early 2000s Scream vibe. Most of the horror movie posters in those days were like this. I was always bothered back then by how lazy the artwork was, but now I have to admit, I really do enjoy them in a nostalgic way. I will say the movie does drag just a bit in the third act, but the ending, although obvious, was handled very well, along with the resolution. The weakest aspect of the movie was probably the script, and I say that because, again, the concept had been done so many times prior and since. It's just not the most original thing, but I found other aspects of the movie that kept me entertained. And come on guys, a 3.9 out of 10? I know I tend to like bad movies, but is this movie really that bad? I just don't see it. Back on that fall evening in 2001, I remember coming out of the theater thinking the movie was just okay, but that was the PG-13 cut. After watching it a second time in its proper R-rated version on DVD, I enjoyed it much more. And revisiting it again for this review, I can honestly say that I still enjoy the film. It's not a lost classic or anything, but I had fun with it, and the cast and technical aspects kept me entertained. The DVD release has some nice special features, including a commentary track, deleted scenes, making of featurettes, and a fun little unique feature that DVD releases used to do back in the day. On this one, you could, quote, choose from 3 different interactive motion menu experiences with music from the film's soundtrack. I miss that sort of stuff. DVDs back in the day were so much fun, and I will say this DVD edition upconverts nicely on my 75-inch 4K TV. It looks and sounds good, but it honestly deserves a nice Blu-ray upgrade. I'm shocked none of the boutique labels are putting out early to mid-2000s horror flicks. I'm sure there's a market for this stuff, and I would happily upgrade Soul Survivors, especially if it had some new and interesting special features. So there you have it. Track down this forgotten horror movie on DVD and check it out. And like I said, if you watch it on streaming, be warned, it's probably the watered-down PG-13 version. A good way to tell is right at the opening scene. The sequence where the 2 killers murder the college student is not in the PG-13 cut. So let me know if you'd be interested in more forgotten horror videos. I've already got 2 more early 2000s horror flicks in mind, and again, they're movies that no one ever seems to talk about, and they don't have Blu-ray releases either, which is so strange to me. Anyway, let me know in the comments if you guys are interested in more videos like this, and let me know your thoughts on this forgotten horror film.